good. Hi team, it's Mrs. Klein, and I'm here to talk you through to the second part of our lab activity for the bonding lab. So the first thing you need to do is you need to open up your Unit 5 bonding lab document that we made a copy of yesterday that has our data table that we're recording all of our results in. So let's go ahead and open up that document on our computers right now. So I have my document open with my notes from yesterday. In class yesterday, we investigated the 6 unknown samples. Some of you may be close to being done, but most of you are not done collecting data on the solubility of our 6 unknowns. So at my lab station, I have my 6 unknowns, and I'm going to test them for their solubility in our 3 solvents. So our 6 unknowns are labeled Roman numerals 1, 1, all the way up through 6. You're going to test them in water, in polar solvent, and also in non-polar solvents. Remember, when you're doing this, you're going to use solutions test tubes. These are our solutions test tubes. The test tubes are always in a test tube rack. We're always going to keep them inside of our test tube rack. And when we're doing a solutions test, it's always excess solvent, countable number of crystals. So when you're getting a sample, like I had number 1 from yesterday, we want countable number of crystals, right? So I'm going to go in here, and especially if my powder is small, I'm going to get the smallest countable number of crystals. So countable number of crystals, and you're going to go through your procedure. And when you're doing your procedure, it's fill your test tube 3/4 of the way full. So 3/4 of the way full, or 4 milliliters, with your solvent, countable number of crystals, watch them fall through the solution, and then identify if they disappear. If they disappear while falling, it dissolved. If they didn't disappear while falling, then you're going to take your glass stirring rod, right? You're going to either use your glass stirring rod, or you're going to use your spatula, and you're going to gently stir the solution at the bottom, and you're looking to see that when you're stirring it, are they popping back up into solution, or are they dissolving? Okay, and then record. And the key, super important, your test tubes have to be clean. So make sure that your test tubes are clean in between. When you're done, empty out your solution into your waste beaker. Make sure the waste beaker is covered and the waste beaker is below your snorkel vent. After you've ran through each of those tests, all done, once you're done with these tests, I want solvent containers and solvent bottles in the fume hood. So you're going to walk them over to the fume hood, and then your table will no longer have any liquids at it other than water. So I'm going to do that now. So now at my table, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing my conductivity test. So in my document, it has conductivity, yes or no, and it's asking me 2 questions. It wants to know, does your solid conduct, and then does it conduct in water? So this is really important. You're only going to test, do you conduct in solution if it dissolved in water. If it did not dissolve in water, you're going to say not applicable. So for us, our substance did dissolve in water, so we're going to go through those 2 tests. So I'm going to first get my sample. So here is sample number 1, and I'm going to ask the question, can I test the solid? In order to be able to test the solid, I must have a crystal that is large enough to fit in between the electrodes of my conductivity tester. So this is my conductivity tester. There are several of them. They're located on the rolling cart that's at the end of the lab stations. You will go to the conductivity tester. The conductivity tester does not come to you. That way, everyone always has access to it. So this is my conductivity tester. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure that the battery's in it. So I'm going to put my battery in my conductivity tester and click. And then I'm going to turn it on, and I'm going to test it using something I know conducts, so in this case, aluminum foil, and there's always aluminum foil next to the conductivity tester, and I'm going to ensure that it works. Now, notice that both the red and the green light turn on when I use the conductivity tester, so this, I'm just confirming, this in fact does work. Check. Aluminum foil goes to the side, done. Now I'm going to test my substance. So I have a blue weighing dish. My blue weighing dish is located at my lab station. There are blue weighing dishes at every lab station. I'm going to check and ask the question, do I even have a crystal that will fit in between these electrodes? And I have some clumps. So I could check it, I could test like this chunk. If I did not have any chunks in here, then the answer would be crystals too small, cannot test. So I do have one. So I'm going to turn it on and I'm going to test. And no, actually all that happened was the crystal shattered. So no, does not. I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to record conductivity as a solid. No, crystal just broke apart. All right, so perfect. That's step one. Now, the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check, did it dissolve in water? And yay, winner, winner, chicken dinner, this thing dissolved in water. So I'm going to check because it dissolved in water. I'm going to test, do you conduct as a solution? So this is how you make our solutions. We have our distilled water bottle. I'm going to fill the bottom of my blue weighing dish just until the water covers the bottom. And I'm going to get a pea-sized sample, right? Right, a pea-sized sample. And I'm going to make a solution. So stir, 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 stir. It does dissolve in water, so it should in fact dissolve in water again. Stir, stir, stir. So I have my solution. And now I'm going to go to my conductivity tester. I'm checking, do you in fact work? Yes, you do. Okay, and into the solution I go. And I'm trying to figure out, do you conduct? And I'm getting nothing. Okay, so now I'm going to wipe off the bottom of my conductivity tester on a paper towel. I'm going to confirm. Yeah, it, look at that. Okay. Does not conduct. Check. Does not conduct. Okay, so solution, my solution that I just created, I am going to take over to the sink because it dissolved in water. It can go down the drain, and then I'm going to rinse, dry, and I'm going to use it again for my next test. So I'm going to go take care of this really fast, and we will be back to talk about melting point. Now we're going to move on to the melting point testing. So at my lab station, I have Bunsen burner, a lighter, a test tube clamp, the spring kind, and melting point test tubes. The melting point test tubes are located in a beaker sitting on top of a piece of paper that says melting point test tubes located next to the gas lines. So I'm going to need a melting point test tube for each of my 6 unknown substances today. And I'm working with the test tube clamp because the test tubes are smaller in diameter. So I am no longer working with my solutions test tubes. For the melting point, we have our metal test tube rack, our Bunsen burner. Our snorkel vent is positioned above our Bunsen burner. We have the melting point test tubes, the test tube clamp, and then a timer or a stopwatch, as well as our 6 shared unknowns that we've been working with. Some reminders, hot things look like cold things. Have a plan for how you're going to handle hot items, which just means make sure that you and your table partner are talking and you don't touch something that's hot. All solids will go in the chemical waste crock if they have not melted. So at the end of the lab, when you're done with all 6, you will dispose of any solids on the bottom in the chemical waste crocks in the back of the room. And then finally, any test tubes that you cannot get clean will go into the container in the fume hood that is labeled melting point test tubes that are dirty. So you'll take them to the fume hood at the end of your lab and you'll put them into the test tube cleaning container, and I'll take care of them for you. So we set up our Bunsen burner. We've obtained a melting point test tube. So I have a melting point test tube out of my beaker of test tubes. I'm going to use my test tube clamp, and I notice, and I'm going to just comment that this is a spring-based clamp, which means that I'm the person who's holding it together, and a little bit of physics. So when I place the test tube inside of here, I'm going to position it so it's over halfway up, and then I'm going to place my fingers on the inside right here. I'm going to gently pressing outwards to keep pressure on the inside, pressure on this test tube clamp so that it doesn't drop my test tube. I'm going to place a pea-sized sample of my unknown substance into the test tube. So I'm going to place we're doing substance number 1. I'm going to place a pea-sized sample. So that would be a pea-sized sample into the bottom of my test tube. So there's my sample. And I'm going to prepare my Bunsen burner. I'm going to prepare my inner blue cone, and then we're timing. Specifically, if you look here at the bottom, we're recording our temperature as either low, 0 to 15 seconds melting, medium, or high. As soon as it does anything, stop, and then record. Stop heating as soon as it either changes state of matter, melts, decomposes, that means turns brown, or you reach 30 seconds. Whichever of those happens first. So we're going to have my sample. I'll place it in my test tube rack for a moment. So my sample is in my test tube rack waiting for me to start. And then I'm going to light my Bunsen burner. So we'll light our Bunsen burner and we're going to adjust our flame. So we have our Bunsen burner with a nice blue inner cone. There's our blue inner cone. Maybe you can see it a little bit better against my black shirt. There's our blue inner cone. I have my sample. Here's my sample. I'm going to place it into my test tube clamp. Hot things look like cold things. And I'm going to count to 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, melting. Our sample's already melting after 5 seconds. Okay, so done, melting. I'm going to place it into the test tube. Test tube's gonna go into the test tube rack gently. I'm not going to let it drop. And then I'm going to record in my worksheet that we had a low melting point. Here we go. So over to my data table, into relative melting point, low, done. 2 through 5. Hot things look like cold things. No Bunsen burners are left unattended. When you are done, melting point test tubes get washed with soap and water. If you cannot get them clean, they just go into the container in the fume hood. Thank you for being excellent students in lab today. I look forward to seeing you when I get back. Thanks, team. Have a great day.